Hey guys, welcome back to Super Switch U. A couple things I'd like to try to talk about today. I'm just going to go ahead and get the first thing out of the way. Donkey Kong Country, or not Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct. Um, that was amazing. If you guys had watched it, I know I'm way late on talking about this, but a lot of stuff in personal life has kind of kept me from making videos. Um, and as far as my predictions, if you guys watched that video, I took the safer route and some guesses, but it definitely paid off. They did talk about the story in pretty good detail. They talked about um, the bad guys, who they were, what their role was in the game, Cranky and Rambi coming back, and I guess some people have really like scoured through this trailer and seen that Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong are very much present in this game, so they are there. I was wrong about part of the co-op thing, but was pretty spot on about the fact that it existed at all. Um, so I thought maybe Diddy Kong was helping you out with that or something, but turns out it's Pauline who ends up coming out of Odd Rock, and that's who that was the whole time. So then she does the co-op stuff, but co-op was very much present. So yeah, I guess at some points back to me. Um, so yeah, looks amazing. Comes out July 17th. I know I'm going to say the date wrong because I said it wrong before, and I'm trying very hard not to mess that up, but I'm probably going to do it anyway. Okay, yeah, July 17th. I think before I was saying the 16th or 18th or something, but yeah, so there's that. But more importantly, I'd like to focus today on a report that came out within this last week that third party companies are struggling to sell games on the Switch too. And it seems like it's not just physical, but digital as well. And some people want to say it's because of the game key cards. It's not because of the game key cards. Over flooded launch. Excuse me, sorry. Over flooded launch titles and stuff. So I'd kind of like to go through and kind of talk about different aspects and theories to what actually happened. So with that, let me here we go. Let me shrink this window down. There we go. Okay, I've got GameStop's list of games pulled up here so I could remember what those launch titles are. I believe it was said there was 13 released to. I'm going to say released to retail stores because saying physical is wrong whenever you have game key cards. And I do believe that that is absolutely part of the overall puzzle that this is. That game key cards do play a fact into that. If you're a physical collector like myself, and people try to say that's a small number, but when it comes to Nintendo platforms, that's absolutely not true. That's a lot of us. Maybe not more than, say, half, but a decent chunk of that market is in fact looking for true physical games, and the fact that game key cards exist, that's not really the case. And then, digital side of it, those people aren't going to go to the store and buy a game key card just because you can resell it. Because most people, I'd like to think most people don't buy a game with the thought of, hey, I'm going to sell this later. Because if you're doing that, you might as well just rent from Gamefly and beat the game and send it back. And if you liked it, you'll go buy it later. But nobody's thinking how they can resell it. Um, and even so, I don't think that that one benefit outweighs the fact that you have to put the cartridge in every time, and so it pretty much negates the purpose of a digital title anyway. So there's that. I'm not gonna spend too much time on the game cards because you guys already know how I feel about that. I freaking hate them. So we won't go into that too far. But let's like actually dive into this. Like what was really available here when you start to think about it. Okay. Let's see. There we go. There's the bottom of the list. So obviously Mario Kart. Mario Kart was going to sell like crazy. Um, if you were selling the system to somebody who didn't have a Switch 1, you might catch sales on Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild because uh, people would want to play those for the first time. And if you're going to play them for the first time, might as well just get the whole thing together. But if you had a Switch 1 and you had these games, I mean, $10 to upgrade it, that almost feels like a no-brainer compared to $70 or $80. But that's the first party side. We're talking about third party. Okay? So with that, you had, I mean, game selection wise, you had some decent stuff. People would want to play a much better version of Hogwarts Legacy. Like my wife wanted one without all the load times and the delays and issues that the first one had. So yeah, a lot of people would want to buy that one. First time Bravely Default's been available since the 3DS, so a decent chunk of RPG fans should be happy with the fact that they could play that. You got a Sonic game. It's always good to launch with Sonic and a Street Fighter, and Hitman's pretty recognizable when it comes to names there. Split Fiction was, I think, one of the higher selling games of the year just on other platforms, so being able to play that for the first time, you would think would help move those numbers. I could see Yakuza being kind of a hard sell because I still don't fully know what the game is. I just know that it has to do with like the Japanese mafia and stuff. I think it might be a beat 'em up from what I'm seeing, but I can't tell from the trailers. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 is a puzzle game, so if you're not into puzzle games, I could see somebody passing on that. Cyberpunk was the best-selling third party, and obviously for good reason. They weren't trying to fight the small number of people who were already trying to buy by saying, "Oh yeah, it's only going to be a key card." Like, no, this is all here. That's what they marketed for, so they did better for that particular reason. Hitman, I could see people passing on Hitman. Rune Factory, it was hard to tell what kind of game that even was. Civilization is very strategy based, so that would have probably lost a lot of people anyway. So, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, you only had like about half of the third party market being recognizable franchises anyway. Um, and I do know that there wasn't a lot of people out there reviewing stuff, so he didn't have people talking about the games, hyping up the games and stuff like that because people didn't have the systems to play these games early on. And then when you really go back to it, let's talk about. Let's see what I want to jump into. Let's go for availability next, and then I'll talk about this backwards compatibility issue, right? So this is I can only talk about from my own experience and what I found, but I've been in 5 stores. Yeah, we'll count GameStop. So 5 stores since Switch 2 launched. Been in my own GameStop a couple of times and looked at games, and then the WalMarts. There's a massive Supercenter in Shawnee, so most of those that came out should have been available in least some way. There's one in Chandler. It's a little bit smaller, and then Choctaw and Midwest City both have medium-sized WalMarts, and so these are all the places I've been. And when looking, there's definitely a few titles that are missing that they don't have a tag for. They are not selling these games for whatever reason. I say games. I think it's. I don't remember seeing Civilization 7 in the WalMarts, but Rune Factory is absolutely missing from every store that I've been in. I have not found a single copy of that game, nor is there a slot for it to even go in. Not like they ran out. Like they never got it. So obviously Rune Factory is probably hurting at the end of the day. And what's worse is those WalMarts have the Switch 1 version of Rune Factory in the store. Like, it's sitting right there with the Switch 1 games. But the Switch 2 edition is absent completely. Um, and then most of these other games, I think with one or two being excluded as far as being sold out, most of them have been available, except Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. It has a tag and it has a home to go back into. Shawnee doesn't have it. The GameStop doesn't have it. Chandler didn't have it. And Midwest City, the store that I work on a regular basis, like they don't have it either. The only place I found it to purchase in a Walmart was Choctaw, and I think they had like 2 copies left. So, I mean, if they're not getting these massive sales off of games, then that tells me that they're not like selling so much and they're out. I don't think they got a lot of copies of the Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S game. And being one of only 2 that are $40, it probably sold out of what it had. But I don't think that they actually got a bunch of these in. So it is hard for third parties to sell games if they're not even getting put into the stores. Now, I can't say that that's true for every store. I can say that that is true for the Shawnee East Oklahoma City market is very lacking in a lot of the games. Because even with stuff like Cyberpunk, Sonic, because I feel like Sonic X Shadow was actually missing in one of those stores. I just don't remember which one. But a lot of those were very low quantity. They would only have like 2 or 3 copies of each, with the exception of Mario Kart World and the 2 Zeldas. I think those were the only ones that had like a high number still in the store. So I think they had just limited stock for a lot of it, and that's not helping anything. And then, yeah, so Switch 1 compatibility on it. There's like 1 or 2 more points I think I want to hit after this, but Switch 2 is backwards compatible with Switch 1. We know that. Okay? So when certain games already released on Switch 1 and have been out for so much amount of time, a lot of people probably already have that. And if there's an upgrade path, they're going to take the upgrade path. And if not, and it's not something that's like high up on your priority list, like I need to have all the new features or graphics, or in some cases, like Sonic X Shadow Generations, there was no features really. They didn't show off mouse control. They didn't show off any kind of voice or camera functions in that game. It was just graphics and frame rate, performance, up resolution. So like they improved it. Which, I mean, some people that matters, but your average consumer probably not. And that's been out since, was it last year? Like the end of last year on Switch 1. It's also fully on the cartridge on Switch 1. So anybody having an issue with the game keycards like I did, get it for Switch 1, play it on Switch 2. You don't actually need to buy a game keycard unless you just care about that higher performance. So, I mean, that shoots Sonic X Shadow Generations out right there. So that's one. Civilization 7. It released, I think, this year for Switch 1. And it's a $10 upgrade path. And you're getting the better frame rates, the higher graphics, and mouse control for $10 after you already bought it. So most people who were wanting to play that and already had a Switch 1 were probably just going to take that path. So they're not selling new games, they're just selling an upgrade pack. So that's, 2 now that are shot by backwards compatibility. Then we got to talk about Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S again, because that has been on the Switch 1 market since 2020. That's a 5-year-old game that they were pushing at launch with just slight improvements to graphics and frame rate, and then they added mouse control and cameras, and there's no upgrade path for that. So they couldn't just give us the $10 upgrade or whatever and sell us on that. No, they wanted you to spend $40 again on a 5-year-old game that you probably played most of that time if you were going to buy that game. So that one got shot by uh, backwards compatibility. Hogwarts Legacy is the one thing that might have not been hurt by the fact that it was on Switch 1 because it performed so poorly on the Switch 1. They were probably not making money selling those $10 copies, which, I mean, that's what I did for my wife. I told her that, hey, if we get the digital version of Hogwarts Legacy and we get it on the sale, so it's like $17, and she had some eShop currency built up and some gold coins, gold points, whatever, and so we do that, and then you could just get the Switch 2 version of it for $10. That's what we did. So a lot of people probably took that path, and though yes, they were moving copies, uh, they were probably not making money on that at all. Not to mention, because we'll go into this next point too, this was one of a few games that did not get confirmed as a launch title, like a day one launch title, or have pre-orders up for a long time. I'm trying to remember exactly how far out Hogwarts Legacy was, but I feel like it was less than a month to the release of this system. Maybe like a 2 or 3 week window that you could even go pre-order it from anywhere, from the eShop, from retail stores, like anything. They gave you no time to purchase that one. Civilization 7 was late to that too. So like any of these that were gonna release on June 5th, right alongside the system, and they didn't have that announced before the pre-orders went live for other countries or like for the US, ours were pushed back, and some of these still didn't catch it before those like a week or two later, I think, when those pre-orders went up. Like, we didn't have that option. And I'll tell you from my own experience there too, GameStop was telling customers in line waiting to pre-order the system, if you didn't pre-order it that day, like when you were doing your pre-orders, when they stopped that for the day, you could not pre-order anything for Switch 2. No launch games, no launch window games, nothing for like a 6-month period. They were wrong, and it came out later that they were wrong, but that's what they were telling people. So if you didn't think you were going to have the money for it, or you weren't sold on it like that day, you didn't pre-order it. And their pre-order list did not have everything. It didn't have Hogwarts Legacy. It didn't have Civilization 7. It did not have... I don't think it had Sonic X Shadow Generations. It definitely didn't have Hitman, because that was another one that was delayed. And Split Fiction. Split Fiction, I think, was not actually said like right there at that moment that you were going to be able to buy it day one. And I might be wrong about Split Fiction, but the other ones I know that I was right about. Hitman was not by that point. Hogwarts and Civilization 7 were absolutely not said to be pre-orderable until after those pre-orders already started. So when you're not pushing your game and advertising your game to pre-order at the same time as the system, you hurt yourself there too. Because then it's like, okay, well, if that's not going to be available day one, then I'm going to have time to do that later. So let me go with something else, like one of the two Zeldas. Let me pre-order a Street Fighter. Let me pre-order Cyberpunk, something like that. So that hurt some of those sales too. And then, yeah, so another thing that probably hurt was a lot of these. Like there were no Switch 2 exclusive games that were not first party on day one. Um, because they were trying to like throw it back, like, oh yeah, it did better than Switch Ones by comparison. Good, but Switch One had like 5 games to pre-order on the first day, and that's true. But of those 5 games, you had 3 that were Switch One exclusive for a long time. It took a few years before Super Bomberman R got ported to Xbox One and PS4. So when it first released in that launch window, uh, or on launch day for Switch One, it was exclusive to Switch One, and it was like this was the only way you could play that. We don't have that for Switch Two. Just sitting here looking through this, Hogwarts Legacy you can get for any system. Sonic X Shadow Generations you could get for any system. Civilization 7, Street Fighter 6, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, Hitman World of Assassination, Cyberpunk, Yakuza, Split Fiction, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, all purchasable on like every other major platform plus PC. I'm pretty sure most of those are PC available. The only thing that is close to an exclusive was Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, which is a 3DS game remaster. And granted that RPGs are sometimes a hard sell, especially when they're the turn-based Final Fantasy style RPG. But you could play it on 3DS. You could play the original game on 3DS. And I can't say that Bravely Default has like the biggest following in the world. So, I mean, when that's your only thing that's like, hey, this is the only thing you can play here, hard sell. So when you're bringing stuff over, you need to have exclusive experiences like, hey, this is like the big things that you're going to be able to do only on the Switch 2 version compared to other places. So if you have bought it for the other systems, you'd buy it here. And if you hadn't, it's just more of a reason to like buy Switch 2, buy this game. Don't go get it for PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series or PC because it's not going to do much for you. And not a lot of these took advantage of some of the stuff that was there. I think Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 might be like the biggest third party to push all of the new features of the system, which is kind of sad because again it's a 5-year-old game and it's a puzzle game. But it had mouse control. It had camera support. I don't remember if it had anything with the microphone specifically. Just that you could do the game chat stuff in it, and so it was giving exclusive experiences. Split Fiction, I could say from playing it, it does not. There's no mouse control. There's no video. There's no chat. No microphone, but the game chat would have been there for sure. So you're just kind of drawing on all the special things Switch 1 did with all the enhanced performance of Switch 2. And again, regular consumer doesn't always care about that stuff. You're either hardcore gamer that loves the high resolution stuff, or you're brought in by the features for the system, mouse control and all the other new stuff, or you're just playing games. I mean, like, I'm trying to remember where I was going with that more specifically, but as far as just somebody who happens to be walking along buying the system, or you were wanting to pick up this system, something's got to sell you on it. And said Yakuza was just it's the director's cut, so it has the extra modes and footage and stuff, but it's still just the same game basically from everywhere else. And I don't remember if they said that the director's cut was exclusive. I feel like maybe that wasn't, but you know, it is what it is. Hitman didn't have anything really that special to it as far as the Switch 2 stuff. So it's the same. I mean, it's the same game. It's all just sort of the same that you could play elsewhere, and the benefit is that now you can take it on the go. But for things like Sonic and Shadow Generations, Civilization 7, Puyo Puyo Tetris. Well, I mean, that had the bonus feature, so we won't count that. Forget I said that one. The other two, it's the backwards compatibility issue. So, but then it's catering to the market of people trying to upgrade from Switch 1. It's like, so now you can play these games on the new Switch, which is probably, when it's the launch window like this, majority of it is the people wanting to upgrade from Switch 1 to Switch 2. So a lot of us have a pretty massive backlog of games. So you needed to come at this thing with like your best possible stuff that you could bring. Capcom's, that probably was Street Fighter 6. That's a whole different issue. We'll get to that one in just a second. Let's see what other companies did stuff. Sega. Okay, so Sega's Yakuza is probably one of the better ones they could do. Sonic and Shadow Generations was the last Sonic game that they released. But Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, no, that was not your best stuff. That was the last Puyo Puyo game that you put out there. That was a major retail release. Not the best stuff that you got. So I feel like there's other better things Sega could have done. I mean, they could have brought, no, I got this. I got this exactly, right? So the best thing that Sega could have probably brought that they have done recently, Persona 3 Reloaded. It's probably one of the better ones. I think that came out already. Let me double check myself on something here. I can pull up another window. See what all Sega's done recently. While that's loading, though, let's try a different company. Okay, so Square Enix. Was Bravely Default like the best thing Square Enix could have done on launch day? Probably not. Probably not, because they got stuff like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. There. Kingdom Hearts. We got screwed on Switch 1 with Kingdom Hearts because the only version of any of those that came out was the cloud versions, which is not a good way to play something on the go or at all. They should have done that. They should have done either just Kingdom Hearts 3, like a complete edition by itself, or the whole Kingdom Hearts package as a release. I feel like people would have actually bought that. Digital game key card didn't even matter. It was Kingdom Hearts. That's what they should have done. What they did was they took a not so popular franchise and thought that the popularity of Switch 2 was going to save that franchise. And that's probably the biggest mistake that they did. Warner Brothers, they could have done, I don't know. I mean, well, Hogwarts Legacy is probably fair because of how bad the first one was. But basically giving that away for $10, that was maybe not the best financial move. But it would have technically moved units. So they should have pushed that. They shouldn't have made it to where YouTubers had to figure that out and put that out there. They should have just came forward and said, hey, if you already have Switch 1 version of Hogwarts Legacy, upgrade for $10. We're sorry we sold you a piece of crap. here's the complete game. If they had come out and said that and advertised that, they would have sold that thing like crazy, even if it was somewhat of a loss. They would have had units out there for people to talk about, for people to say, hey, this is like the best version. Go get a Switch 2 and get this, and whatever. Like, it would have moved regular ones at some point. Definitely if they had made that only like a limited time thing. Like, hey, month of June, it's the launch of the system. If you buy a Switch 2 version, you can get it for $10. But you got to do that before June 30th. Would have moved units, would have got people talking about it, and then everything sold after June, you'd be selling at full price. But they didn't do it, so they definitely hurt themselves on that. Let me see. States, newest to oldest. So Sega, I don't know. Demon Slayer might not have done a whole lot. Let's see. It was mostly like figures and stuff. That's another Yakuza game, and 2 Point Museum, which 2 Point Museum was supposed to come out at some point. They haven't said anything about that yet. No, they could have tried Metaphor. They could have tried pushing that one. They put it on PS5 and Xbox Series. They could have done something with Monkey Ball. And I think Shin Megami Tensei 5 was going too far back. Okay, so maybe that was the best stuff that Sega had. It was definitely the most recent stuff Sega had. But, I mean, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, if you're going that far back for a franchise, you should have just did something with Monkey Ball. It would have been about the same. 2K. They still do sports games, right? They could have launched this thing with this. Let's actually go into that. Let's dive into that one, because that's another thing that could have pushed some sales for day one and could have gotten numbers up. Now, I don't personally play sports games. Football, basketball, baseball, doesn't matter. I don't play them. But I do know that there is a very large market for sports games. A lot of people like to play them. You wanted to sell games first day, you should have had something out there that was a sports game. Football game, a basketball game. So that was that Madden, NBA, baseball. Wow, I don't know what baseballs is anymore. All of that's missing. You got 13 retail titles and then a few digitals after that. And the entire launch window there for like the next couple of months, nothing. You got nothing on there. And I get Madden's coming out in August, right? So Madden might not have been the game to move, but like what was the last sports game to come out? Let's try that one and see. Okay, so like NBA is a hot one, right? So if we do that and we look for the last NBA to come out, probably not talking about NBA Bounce, especially because that didn't. Oh well. I mean, I guess technically that's a basketball game, but that looks like it's marketed to kids, and that's in September. No, we want games. We don't want trading cards. Holy crap, that would take way too long to go through. All right, so video games. The video games. All right, NBA 2K25. When did that come out? Is that last year? Because I mean, I guess that would have hurt it. I guess if it was last year. Not saying. I swear they used to say release dates for these somewhere. I guess not. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all the sports games were too far back, and we're about to get all the new ones, and they just couldn't do something. But like you could have done something. Maybe not the last major year or whatever, but anything. So I don't know. It's just a whole genre of games though that's missing. Here, I'm gonna work in another thing that I was talking about. Right, there was a video I wanted to do separate, but I'll talk about it here. Racing games. The actual launch day and launch window is overly saturated with racing games. You want to think that I'm joking here, but all right. So retail release wise, it's not as far as full package physical games. You've got Mario Kart World for day one, but then what is that? Fast Fusion. It's a racing game. Ridge Racer was a racing game. GameCube Classics has F-Zero in it. That's a racing game. You got 4 on launch day, but you couldn't get me anything for like a rhythm game, sports games. You had none of that, but you could get 4 racing games, and that's day one. Then you also got stuff coming out like Team Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. I think team was probably an extra word in that. So Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, that's another one. Kirby Air Riders was a major Nintendo first party game coming out at sometime between now and the end of the year. That's a racing game. That's 6. That's 6 racing games in a 6-7 month period. That's too much. It's way too much. So, I mean, certain things like that are oversaturated. Fighting games, not so much, because I think all we really got is Street Fighter and Soul Calibur. But I don't know. I feel like I got a little bit off topic with that, but still a little bit on point. I mean, when you're oversaturating certain genres, certain types of games, certain appearances with the games that you're putting out there, you're missing crucial markets, and so that also probably contributed to hurting your sales. But I don't know that they're ever going to see all of those issues. The real takeaways here, it's pretty much this. You flooded it with game key cards instead of physical copies. So all other third-party companies took a backseat to Cyberpunk, which Cyberpunk maybe didn't sell the numbers that they were expecting either, because none of those reports came out. But we know somebody was like, this is lower than our lowest expectation. Well, I mean, you hurt some of your sales right off the bat by taking out physical collectors. Okay? I would have bought certain other titles if they were actually available, right? First one, the thing that I was looking at the most until it came out as a game key card was Street Fighter 6. I mean, like, they would have absolutely had that sale for me. So, and I'm writing this down to keep my thoughts intact or whatever. But that one also had some additional issues. It wasn't even just like, okay, it's a game key card. Sure. But the DLC was a separate code in the box. So the whole reselling thing, you took away some of the value by taking out the DLC, and now it's just the base game, which is worth not a whole lot to anybody. And I can say this confidently because I've got the list of pre-owned games at GameStop for Switch 2 pulled up as well. And only like 4 things have been traded in apparently, so they could list it. Street Fighter 6 being one of those. The base game on the eShop is $39.99. And then you got to get the DLC and stuff separately. The physical copy had a code for the digital content, which all of that together, $60, that was a fair price because the DLC was going to cost you more. But you lose that selling it. So buying this used copy, I could only hope somebody didn't already redeem the DLC, but they probably did. So you can only expect to get the game, the base game, So you would think that places like GameStop would account for that. No, they sure didn't. $54.99, so $5 less to get it used without the DLC, and pros can get it for $52.24. It is then cheaper to just buy the digital version of the base game, and you could get, I think, one of those year fighter packs and still not spend that much money. Or you'd be paying the full new price at that point. So like, why would somebody buy this used copy? Like, I expect this to sit here until they drop that price like way down. It would need to be at least the price of the base game on the eShop for me to consider that, because there's nothing on the cartridge. Oh yeah, I could probably resell that. I believe GameStop is given about $25. Yeah, you take that off of that $55 that you're spending on it, and you ate $30. You ate $30 there, almost the entire cost of the base game. So you're not making anything back, and you have nothing to show for it at the end of the day. So that's absolutely not worth it. So I mean, they killed any purpose to that game keycard for their own game. Uh, Man, I was talking about something different before. Let me get back to my thoughts. Anyway, so I was gonna point out that the game keycard thing. Yeah, if stuff wasn't game keycards, Street Fighter 6 would have been on that list of things I would have gotten. Hitman, because it was the first 3 Hitmans, and it would have been nice, but not as a game keycard. Not for me. Yakuza. Yakuza 0 was one I was looking at before game keycard was said. And Bravely Default, because that was a 3DS game. And for $40, it was a nice price point. Now, I didn't have the money to buy all of those first day, but I can tell you this. If the playing field was more level, and Cyberpunk was not the only fully physical game releasing day one, I wouldn't have bought it. That would not have been my first choice. It would have been Street Fighter 6. I would have then also tried to have done some of these other ones. Probably before pre-ordering Daemon X Machina, for sure, which is no longer pre-ordered. I have to make very specific financial decisions now with my game purchases, and it does not make the cut. So I'm gonna have to wait and pre-order something else later. But so just killing off the physical collectors hurt them. So I know my one sale isn't enough, but I also know that there's a lot of people out there that are like me in the same way of thinking. And granted, yeah, like, all right, we'll do some math. I got time. I don't know if you guys got time. I got time. We'll do the math, right? So about 3.5 million units of Switch 2s sold. Okay? Not 3.5 million people who bought those care about physical games. That's fair. If we took half of that, that'd be 1.75 million Switch users that might be the base that cares about physical releases. But let's do less than that. Let's say only about 1 million actually care about physical. And let's say of that, half of those people cared about Street Fighter 6. So that's 500,000. That would have been added on to the sales that you already made from Street Fighter 6. So let's say that they're very low unaccounted numbers, like did way less than they were expecting. But Street Fighter is probably the most popular brand. That's why I'm using it as an example. Okay? So let's say that they had already sold 500,000. Like that's the low numbers that they were absolutely upset by. That's a million. You would have been in that already sold over 1 million units if that's the numbers that are there. I can't say for sure that it is or isn't. I'm just saying, right? Your small percentage of people is not 50 to 100 people. No, because you've got to think about all the people in a gaming ecosphere. Okay? If you do the same thing, just set that over there. You do the same thing with the Switch 1. Okay, let me get those actual sales numbers real quick. As there's a point. There's absolutely a point to this. Oop. Can't type though. Video games. Systems. There we go. Not best. No. So, here we go. And where's my list? There we go. Maybe this will pull it up. IGN and that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, let's be super specific here. There we go. Okay, so Switch 1 numbers. 152. Okay, 152 million, give or take. Same kind of number base applies. Okay. Let's say that of that, let's say 20% of all Switch 1 gaming data, like gaming fan base, 20% is the percent that cares about physical games. It's a minority. It's a very small minority of the overall number. 20% of 152. That's math I don't do in my head. Times 20%. Alright, so that's still 30.4 million Switch 1 gamers. Right? The same number existed. That is a massive amount of sales, especially because so many games that get released barely ever hit that 1 million or more mile marker in their lifetime of sales. If you even sold to half of those physical game collectors, I mean, you're still talking 15 million. It's not an easy number that gets hit, even in today's market, because games are so oversaturated. Like, it's still a very large number, even if, say, it was 10%. So that would be 15.2 million that collect physically, and then you take half of that, and you're looking at like 7.1 million units of a game sold. That's the numbers that Zelda's used to hit. I'm talking your Wind Waker has only hit about that much, maybe a little more. Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, things like that. They hit about 7 million. That's the kind of numbers, right? So whenever you're on a system, you're on a brand new platform, and you're actually talking about trying to sell a game on the system, and you only have 12 other games you're competing against day one. And 3.5 million of those units sold. Let's say 3 million of that is actually people that wanted it, and the 0.5 is people that were scalping, that somehow got through and scalped it. Okay, so 3 million active gamers buying games to play for themselves. You want to try to hit as much of that number as you can before the platform gets flooded. I mean, if you go try to look at the number of games for Switch 1 that exist, both retail, physically, and digitally, it is a ridiculously insane number of games. Like, you would drown in those numbers if you're trying to put a game out there now and sell it and hope that people buy that game. Like, you have to try hard to get those sales. This, however, this is actually a little bit sad when you actually think about the overall thing. And they'll use whatever excuses that they want to. At the end of the day, somebody wasn't trying hard enough. So, instead, you look back at it, Rune Factory, they didn't get their game in every store. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, Sega didn't get enough copies out there, because that's what I'm seeing. Like, it's not there. If you start looking at some other stuff, Capcom, you should have just put the whole thing as the game key card download, instead of trying to be, because their whole thing is they were trying to be greedy and get the sales off of people when they resell it. They could still make money off of people to sell them the DLC if somebody doesn't hold on to that first edition of the game. That's why there's a expiration date for those download content codes. I mean, that's the only reason that exists, is to try to sell after the fact. And that hurt them. I guarantee you, if the game key card thing itself did not hurt them, putting the DLC as a separate download did. It absolutely did. Civilization 7 not even doing a cartridge, but doing a code in a box, hurt them. Split Fiction, code in a box, hurt them. Split Fiction, probably getting hurt by GameStop not even giving that box. Because I didn't get a box. I got a code on a receipt. So, at that point, I could have just bought it from the eShop. It would have been the same thing. As far as a lot of these other things, I'm not getting bombarded with a lot of advertisements for Switch 2 games, but I look up videos for Switch 2 all the time. I am making videos about Switch 2. I'll tell you what I get bombarded with on advertisements, okay? Mario Kart World's hitting me pretty hard. I already have that game. Cyberpunk is hitting me pretty hard, and I already have that game. Rune Factory has basically sold me on wanting the game. I just don't have the money to go get the game. But it's... I mean, I've been hit so hard by those advertisements, it's unreal. And then those have kind of started to die off a little bit. Yakuza is beating me down with advertisements. I have not seen a single ad for Hogwarts, Bravely Default, Sonic, Street Fighter, Hitman, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Not a single one. And because it is now after the release date of it, because this is June 21st, a new game has released for Switch 2 that is not a launch title, like a day one launch title, and I have not gotten hit by an advertisement for that either, and that is Raito Remastered. Nothing. They are not pushing advertisements for these games either. And you can't just rely on people knowing what games are and not trying to sell people on the games, because clearly we're not wanting these games to the level that you want us to want them at to buy them. So, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are just not trying hard enough. right? Because you didn't have to go all in on game key cards, right? I I would say this to Sega. I understand Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S being a game key card. It's a 4 GB game. You would have made like no money on it uh, with putting it on a cartridge. I mean, you would have made some, and at that point, we could debate as far as like, would you really take a loss on a 5-year-old game that you already had created, and all you did was you added in mouse control and camera stuff, and you like polished it up. But the system does a certain level of polishing anyway. So how much did you really do with Puyo Puyo? You could have actually probably put that on the card, and it would have been fine. But what you should have done, that should have been, if nothing else, that should have been your Switch 2 edition. Because apparently Switch 2 editions are easier to put fully on the cartridge than anything else. That's why we're seeing a lot of them. That's why we're seeing Sonic Racing Crossworlds showing that it's going to be one. But that shouldn't have been your first one. Your first one should have been Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Then you could have sold it for 40. You could have maybe sold it for 50. You still would have been one of the cheaper options out there. But let's say it was 40, and you had to eat $17 worth of cartridge and another like $3 for insert sleeves and plastic if it didn't come with it. I would assume the plastic case came with the cartridges, because why else would those be $17? You know, eat like half of that cost. You have to eat another half because the stores have to make some money. So $10 a game. But this has been out for 5 years, so it should all be extra to you at this point. So they should have done that there. Yakuza 0 should have just been on the cartridge. Like, yeah, you could bump it down to $50, but apparently you're not selling it anyway, so what does it matter? You know, raise it an extra $10, $20, put it physically on the cartridge, advertise it that it's fully on the cartridge, and people would have bought it. I would have bought it. I would have tried jumping into the Yakuza series with that game. Not now. Yeah. Just a lot of these. Looking back at it, because I know I already did a video where I rated the launch titles, but I mean, looking at it from a perspective of why are they not selling more than they are, it makes sense. It does. It absolutely makes sense. So, to these companies, absolutely try harder. Now, as for you guys, comment your thoughts down below. If you agree with what I said, if you don't agree with what I said, definitely tell me what your thoughts are, why you think they're not selling as well. Because, I mean, something's hurting it there, and it is a storm of things. It's not just any one answer is gonna fix this, but you start correcting some of those issues, you're gonna see numbers go up. But we'll talk about any thoughts and theories you guys have, and maybe I'm wrong on a couple of these things. Maybe it's just Oklahoma that doesn't have all the games on the shelf. But, you know, let me know what you guys think. And we'll talk about it. And hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.